Chapter 5. Rainy season. 3:48 p.m. The sky painted the world in shades of gray. Light rain pattered Maxine's rain jacket. Drops trickled down the brim of her hood. She biked faster, feeling the burn in her thighs. Today had been the biggest workout of her life, and it was only going to get worse. Now that the shower had started, it wouldn't let up until after Alicia had ravaged the city. Even then, Maxine could expect more days of dreadful wetness. Owen lagged behind a few yards, pushing himself with all he had. Emotional and physical stress added to his fatigue. As they cruised out of the neighborhood, Maxine couldn't help but miss her day job. It was simple. Suture injured animals, meet some colorful people, and clock out. She would cook for the kids and watch videos on her Mac computer. At her gym, she had an electronic fitness tracker that synchronized with her phone. That was gone, too. They turned onto a main road. Dead traffic lights swayed. A handful of people ran into a public parking garage for shelter. Trash and debris littered the streets. Distant buildings burned. Their towering infernos danced in the shower. They zipped past a hurricane shelter. The place that promised warmth and light in times of trouble was dark, gloomy, and packed with sweaty people. A little kid and her distraught mother looked through the window, watching Maxine and Owen pass. They stuck to the sidewalks to avoid popping their tires. A barricade barred anyone from entering one of the few police stations in the city. A horde of wet and hungry people gathered out front, cursing and jeering. "Someone stole my wife's purse. Why aren't you helping us? Get out here, pigs. Why are we paying you for?" A line of poncho-wearing cops stood outside the door. "Go home and wait for the National Guard." People, some with children and a few with elderly, backed away. Others kept shouting at the police, condemning them for not doing their jobs. While this was happening, Owen pointed out a weaselly-looking guy pickpocketing the outliers in the crowd. "Should we do something?" Maxine asked. Owen shook his head. "We've done enough." Plagued with guilt, Maxine biked on. Along their way, they saw a group of thugs with bandanas around their mouths, chucking bricks at a jewelry store window. One saw Maxine and Owen cruise by, but continued their robbery. Anarchy was here. The storm expedited things. Those willing to be caught out in the rain would reap the rewards. The rest of the vultures would have to wait until after the sun returned. Maxine's teeth chattered. Her bare legs were cold. She regretted not wearing pants. She arrived at the canal-lined neighborhood. Owen's place wasn't far now. Most homeowners had their boats raised up or on trailers in their driveways. Lots of their windows were already stormproof. They arrived at the Mediterranean-style two-story home. Its elegant appearance fitted Owen. His 2018 Dodge truck was dead on the driveway. There was no sign of Chase's car. Owen said, "I wonder if he decided to volunteer at the school after all." Maxine didn't reply. Not seeing his car made her wonder if her children were stranded somewhere. If the kids had to leave the note, Chase must have picked them up super early. What if he never made it to the house? Stress crushed the sides of her temples. She hoped she didn't come all this way for nothing. They dismounted their bikes outside the front door. Owen fiddled with his keys. Maxine noticed scratches on the lock. Heart racing, she turned the doorknob. It was unlocked. Owen glanced up from his keyring, wearing a look of surprise. Maxine pushed open the door. It creaked slowly, revealing the dark house. Sunlight spilled in behind them, casting their long shadows across the chilly marble floor and vandalized interior. Maxine and Owen quietly stepped inside and gawked. Furniture was turned over, and the cushions cut open. Clumps of fuzz littered the floor. Artwork worth thousands was carelessly tossed aside. Kitchen cupboards were open. Shattered plates, bowls, and glasses littered the kitchen floor. It looked like a tornado had passed through the house. Maxine went to take another step inside. Owen put out his arm, blocking her. He gestured to the ceiling. "Hear that?" Maxine listened, not hearing anything. "I think there's someone up there," Owen whispered. "Wait here." "Don't go up there alone. What if they're armed?" Maxine asked. "Just stay put." Maxine didn't object. Owen quietly walked ahead of her and turned toward the spiraling stairs. Maxine chewed at her fingernail. Anxiety crippled her as she waited. The partly open door behind her freaked her out. She shut and locked it. The damage was horrendous, but she was even more worried about her children. She felt wheezy thinking about where Sarah and Ike could be. Perhaps that's who Owen heard upstairs. A few long minutes inched by. Maxine crossed her arms. The wind whistled outside. The rain changed direction. Tired of waiting, she started forward. Her shoes pattered on the marble floor. Her heart throbbed in her chest. The entrance hall extended into the living room. The glass doors in the back revealed the infinity pool, expensive grill, and boat canal. The paintings of Italy captured Maxine's attention. Scratch marks desecrated the walls where the paintings once resided. Someone had chipped away at the wall, looking for something. Footsteps sounded on the metal spiral stairs. Maxine took a few steps back to the door, ready to bolt. Owen reached the bottom of the steps. He wore a backpack and had slipped into a fresh change of clothes. "No one is up there." "You could have told me that," Maxine said, sounding harsher than she wanted. Owen glanced around. "Any sign of chasing the twins?" "I haven't exactly been looking," Maxine replied. "What's in the backpack? Are you planning on going somewhere?" "If we have to rescue our children, yes," replied Owen. Maxine sighed. She headed immediately for the downstairs bedrooms. The rooms here had been turned over also. Owen followed her, dreading the damage to all his things. "Just doesn't end," he mumbled. Maxine's voice cracked. "You think they were attacked?" "I don't think we should go that far." "Yeah, but we don't know where they are." Owen didn't press the issue. "Who would do this?" Maxine asked. "Looters," Owen replied. "It looks like they were after something specific." "My stuff," Owen said. "Let's ask the neighbors. Maybe they saw something." "You seem pretty calm about this whole situation," Maxine said. "Your son is missing, Owen." "My house is ruined, and my boat is gone. I'm fully aware of how bad things are, but don't accuse me of keeping a level head. It's the only thing that's going to get us through this in one piece. Now let's see if we can't figure out what happened here." "Are you sure they're not upstairs?" Maxine asked, growing desperate. "There was no one up there. At this point, I'm not sure they made it home." Maxine's heart sank. Owen said, "We'll find them." "We should have seen them on our way over," Maxine said, feeling her morale slip. She was ready to tear her hair out. None of this should have happened. She should be with her teenagers, watching meaningless TV while they waited out the storm. It all must be a bad dream. When would she wake up? When would she find hope? Owen took her hand and squeezed it lightly. She fought the tears forming in her eye ducts. She wanted to say she was stronger. She wanted to turn off her emotions like Owen, but that wasn't who she was. Owen embraced her. He wore Roy's windbreaker over his new change of clothes. She rested her cheek on his wet shoulder. He brushed her hair back gently.
"We'll get through it,"
Maxine replied. "How can you be so sure?"
"We got through the ocean. We can get through this,"
Owen replied. Maxine drank up his words. They walked to the neighbor's house across the street and knocked. After a few moments of no reply, they tried to steal a peek through the window. The curtains were closed. They tried again. It looked like the owner was away. They tried the house next to Owen's. They stood under the small awning, escaping the rain. Owen wore a distant stare on his handsome face. Maxine could almost see the wheels turning in his head. They knocked again. "Hello!" Maxine called out. The door opened a smidge. An inch of the man's face became visible through the cracked door. He was a chunky man in a beach shirt, shorts, and flip-flops.
"Can I help you?" "Hi, I'm Owen. I live next door."
Owen pointed back at his house.
"Someone broke in. I was wondering if you saw anything this morning."
The man opened the door and shook Owen's hand. "I'm Harry."
"Harry, did you see anyone this morning?"
Harry eyed Maxine.
"One guy. Yeah."
"What did he look like?" Maxine asked anxiously.
"Young guy. Looked half Hispanic."
Owen turned to Maxine.
"That sounds like Chase."
Maxine nodded and said to Harry, "How about teenagers? A boy and a girl. They're twins." Harry shook his head.
"I wasn't really paying much attention. I'm still waiting for the power to return."
Maxine and Owen exchanged looks.
"Harry,"
Owen said, trying to find the best way to break the news.
"The power's not coming back."
Harry nodded, his tongue running behind his bottom lip as he processed the information.
"Yeah, probably right. The electric company will have to wait until the storm passes before sending out some guys."
Owen shook his head.
"No. It won't come back even after that."
"There's been an EMP explosion," Maxine said. Harry looked like a confused dog. Maxine replied, "Sheesh, man! What have you been doing this whole day?"
"Slept in, ate a bowl of cereal, and meditated a little bit,"
Harry admitted. Owen interjected,
"All our electronics are down. The city is going nuts."
Harry's expression revealed his doubt. "Don't take our word for it," Maxine said. "Just try to start your car or turn on your cell phone."
"All right,"
Harry said hesitantly, his doubt still evident.
"Was there anyone else who showed up at Owen's house?"
Owen asked.
"Not that I know of." "Anyway, I guess you all should get going, huh?"
Harry said.
"I guess so,"
Owen said. He shook Harry's hand.
"Thanks for your time."
Harry shut and locked the door. They tried the next neighbor's house. The owner was home, but she didn't answer. Maxine and Owen stood under the awning for a moment. Rain continued falling around them. It wasn't too heavy, but it had gotten annoying and cold. Maxine masked her emotions. She tried to look at the situation objectively. "Okay, so maybe they got nervous when the power cut out and went to Miami Beach."
"That's possible. But I don't see Chase taking your kids out after the EMP."
"So whoever broke into the house took them?" Maxine asked. Owen opened his mouth to say something, but then closed it. The rain filled the silence. Owen watched the road.
"Maybe," Maybe Chase invited them to campus.
Why?
I don't know, Owen said. Either way, Chase's car is not here, so he's either at the university or somewhere on the road.
Maxine sniffled. The university is 11 miles away, right?
Thereabouts, yeah,
Owen replied. What's the quickest way to get there? Maxine asked. Owen thought about it.
Follow Route 1. We don't have to worry about traffic or lights.
But that will send us right through downtown, Maxine said.
It will,
Owen confirmed. Maxine set her jaw. She made it through childbirth. She could do this. She just needed to push. Part of her was tempted to wait at Owen's house, but when it came to her children, she was never one to sit around. She was the type of parent that would defend her child in public if she saw someone speaking down to them.
Well?
Owen asked. Maxine watched the rain. Standing around won't change anything. With nothing else to say, they headed back to Owen's house, ate a quick snack, put up their raincoat hoods, and set off. Their bike tires slashed through puddles on the street. Maxine stood up on the pedals and pushed herself. She breezed by the stylish houses. She couldn't help but wonder what joys the day could have held. There was so much potential squandered that it made her gut twist. She thought about the next time she'd have a good meal or take her car out for a drive. She thought about the simple pleasures of watching a Hallmark movie or running her veterinary practice. She had many animals she tended to regularly. They'd still have access to medicine, but not X-ray machines. Her mind went to darker places. There were entire wards in the local hospital where patients relied on life support. Were they gone too? How about people with pacemakers? She couldn't even imagine the death toll. The hurricane would steal even more lives. The more she thought about this, the faster she biked. She couldn't save the world, but she could save her children. That had to be enough.
Slow down,
Owen said. Maxine glanced over her shoulder. Droplets pelted her face as she watched Owen catch up. Winded, he said,
Don't waste your energy. We'll still have to make our way back.
Going back to your house doesn't sound like the best idea.
We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. One step at a time.
Maxine lowered herself to the wet seat. The neighborhood turned into apartments and condos. Shapes of people moved inside. An elderly couple sat on their screened porch and smoked. With hawk-like perception, they watched Maxine and Owen. The couple continued by pastel-colored buildings the farther they cruised into the inner city. A young delivery man had wrapped his moped around a streetlight. Maxine kept her eyes straight ahead, ignoring the gore. Blood had never grossed her out. Before she became a vet, she had worked as a paramedic and encountered all sorts of gunshot wounds, freak accidents, and bones that snapped through the flesh. She was able to assess the damage objectively. The only type of injury that really got to her were brutal knifings. At an early age, she had witnessed her parents' deaths at the hands of a knifeman. She had learned to suppress the memories. However, at odd points through the day, or in her dreams, the horrors of that life-altering night would flicker in her mind. Beyond the blood and death, it was her inability to move that had the largest impact on her psyche. The skies darkened. Maxine kept her head low to keep the rain from her eyes. Owen took the lead this time. They weaved through dead cars. Their owners abandoned them for shelter, huddling inside the closest building when the shower began. The majority of people wouldn't risk passing through the storm this late in the day. Wherever they were now was where they'd stay through the hurricane. Owen pumped his brakes, but the bike was too wet for them to function properly. He eventually had to use his feet to slow down. Maxine rolled past him before stopping, wondering why he'd gotten off his bike next to an old BMW Beamer. He got into the already open car door. A moment later, he returned with a few bandanas the car owner had lazily strewn across the passenger seat. He folded it into a triangle and fashioned it around the lower half of his face.
"Rain protection," he said.
Maxine felt icky using the stolen cloth. "It's just something little. The owner probably won't even know it's gone," she justified. Hoods up and wearing bandana masks, they looked like thugs racing through the city. They saw the downtown high-rises and banks reaching to the black heavens. It was probably around 6 p.m. It would be sunset by the time they reached the university. Maxine's soaked hands froze around the cold handlebars. Her clothes felt heavy. The rain jacket only protected her top half, but it wasn't warm. To avoid twisted metal from a crashed car, Maxine swerved onto a sidewalk. Her tires locked up. The bike wobbled. Sucking air through her teeth, she straightened out her handlebars and continued forward. She started her way into downtown. Bars had smashed windows. A woman lay face down on the sidewalk. Her dress had been torn open at the shoulder. Her jewelry was gone. Maxine rolled up to her on the off chance she was still breathing. The woman's face rested in a 2-inch water puddle. Only one eye was visible. She couldn't have been over 25. She was young, beautiful, and had a good life ahead of her. All that was lost because someone got greedy. Owen and Maxine quietly rolled down the back streets. Dumpsters reeked of rainwater and soggy junk. They saw a few soaked blankets and a shopping cart full of drenched clothes. The owner had left quickly. She heard Owen curse under his breath. Max turned that way. Owen parked at the threshold of an alleyway. On the other side was Route 1, the street they'd been paralleling since they discovered the woman's body. Beyond the alley, they saw crashed cars and more bodies. One was a cop. 2 looked like businessmen, and there was a handful of others Max couldn't quite identify.
"What the hell happened?"
Owen asked. "We should keep going," Max said, sick of the rain, sick of the death, and feeling fear pressing down on her. Owen got off his bike and walked through the alley. "Owen!" Max called out in a loud whisper. Reluctant to stay alone, she dismounted and hurried after him. Owen reached the threshold and turned out of sight. Max called his name, afraid to make too much noise. She sped to the main street, not making direct contact with the corpses. Furious and afraid, she rounded the corner and stopped. Her jaw fell open. Her eyes watered. Owen stood in complete silence. The downtown police department was one of the many tall building/car garage hybrids on the street. Wooden and plastic barricades formed a wall around it. Bullet holes splintered the windows. Dozens of bodies piled all around the front, cops and citizens alike. The wind and rain stole any words Max or Owen might say. There was no sign of who killed the people, but their bodies were riddled with bullets. It appeared someone gunned down the crowd before the people could react. By the amount of carnage, it was more than one person. Gunshots echoed in the distance. It was hard to tell where the noise came from, but it seemed far away. Not taking any chances, they shrank back into the alleyway. They mounted their bikes and rode swiftly, trying to avoid the main road as much as possible. Max couldn't fathom the amount of death. It almost seemed fake, like something she'd see in a horror movie. Instead of screaming or crying, she was as stiff as a board and biked quickly. The farther they went into downtown, the more gunshots they heard. The ocean was east of them. Occasionally they'd catch a glimpse of the choppy waters. A cargo boat was silhouetted against the rain. Soon, the high-rises, banks, and other skyscrapers were behind them. They maneuvered back onto Route 1 to continue their journey. They passed by condos and then multi-million-dollar homes. They biked under I-95 and went parallel to the walled-off train track. The two-lane road offered little regarding sightseeing. Trees rocked in the wind to one side, a wall stood to the other. The road was uncluttered and easy to travel. Maxine and Owen followed it with ease for 4 miles. They approached the Miami-Dade and Sewer Department. As they went by, they heard gunshots inside and saw little blips of light through the window. They quickly moved by it and saw the Consulate of Brazil. The inside of the building was burning, while the outside was being doused with rainwater. They veered off into a neighborhood to avoid a massive shopping center. The buildings here were single-story, with orange tile roofs and covered pools. Most of the university professors lived in this area. Maxine had a few friends she met at her practice who lived nearby. As tempted as she was to stop in, she continued on her mission. Questions swirled in her head about who had attacked the police station and water plant. Would normal people resort to this much death after only a few hours without power? Something didn't add up. They whizzed by the Low Art Museum. The University of Miami was in sight, and with it, their greatest trial. Chapter 6. Shelter. 6:42 p.m. Storm clouds masked the little sunlight that remained. Rain poured relentlessly across the campus. Mud puddles blemished the well-trimmed grass. The academic buildings flanked around Stanford Drive. Owen and Maxine weaved through the campus, stopping outside the 2-story student center. Not planning on staying long, Maxine and Owen parked their bikes against the wall. Getting under the overhang, they removed their soggy bandanas, wrung them out, and placed them in their jacket pockets. A pensive look hardened Maxine's face. Owen took her hand. His warmth was the only thing she felt.
"They'll be there,"
Owen said. "I sure hope so," Maxine thought. They stepped into the entrance hall. Hundreds of candles provided dim light through the building and hallways. Families and students packed the room. Volunteers wore university t-shirts and handed out bedding, served dinner at a small soup bar, and directed families to areas on the floor where they could sleep. A pair of student volunteers approached Maxine and Owen. One was a young black male with an athletic build, and the other was a pudgy white female. They had baggy eyes and wore fake smiles to hide their stress. The female held a clipboard and glanced at Maxine and Owen's soaked attire. "Little wet, huh?" Owen rubbed his hands together.
"It's warm in here,"
the male replied.
"It's just the people. The heaters are out."
"Along with everything else," the female said.
"You're welcome to stay, but you may have better luck at your home," the male added. "You got food?" Owen asked, salivating.
"Not much," the male said.
"We weren't expecting this big of a turnout. Like I said, it would be better for you to head home."
Maxine, hugging herself, scanned the crowd of people. Most of them were on the floor. Some of the orientation rooms had been turned into shelters as well. She didn't see any familiar faces. Discouragement set in quickly. Owen said to the couple,
"We're looking for our son."
"Oh?" the female asked. How old?
23. He's a student here. His name is Chase Barksdale. He might be volunteering.
Chase, the male said, thinking. He turned to the female. She shrugged. I don't know.
You don't know?
Owen replied.
The male said, We've been too busy to get on a first-name basis. What about the clipboard?
Owen asked. The young woman leafed through the pages. Owen described his son's appearance. Meanwhile, Maxine wandered a few yards away, trying to get a better look at the people.
Ma'am,
a deep voice said. She quickly turned back, seeing the security guard.
I'm going to have to ask you to stay by the door until your information has been taken down.
Have you seen my children? Maxine's natural beauty was muddled by stress lines, dark circles under her eyes, and a cold expression.
Are you okay?
The guard asked. Maxine scanned the crowd. Ike and Sarah are twins. They're 14. I don't know what they'll be wearing, but they both have brown hair and brown eyes like their father.
Alarmed, the guard said, Why don't you have a seat, and I'll see what I can do, okay?
I don't have time to wait. I have to get them home before the storm hits.
It's already here, the guard said. Please, sit down. I'll get you some tea. Do you like tea? I'm going to get it anyway. Wait here.
The security guard walked away. He glanced over at Maxine, pitying her sorry state. Baking in the morning sun had burned her, racing across town had weakened her, riding the rain had frozen her, and witnessing dead body after dead body had numbed her. Owen approached.
Hey.
I don't see them.
They weren't on the list either,
Owen explained.
We can keep looking, but you need to sign in first.
Maxine wandered over to the student with the clipboard. She lazily signed her name without reading what was on the page. The male student asked her if she had any weapons. Maxine replied, No.
Good. This is a no-gun campus, and we plan to keep it that way.
The security guard returned with a foam cup full of steaming tea.
Here, drink this while I go look for your teenagers. Twins, you said?
Thank you, Maxine replied. She sipped the English breakfast. They had used a cheap brand without much taste. Owen glanced at the crafts table.
We can get a bowl of soup, too.
That's not going to help us, Maxine said. Taking her cup with her, she walked to the other volunteers, not seeing Chase in the main room. They walked through the people, watching them quietly chat. Some of them were students, others were teachers. There were a few modestly dressed homeless people, as well as a handful of families. They glanced at Maxine and Owen as she walked among them. A few asked if she was okay. They could see in her eyes that something had happened to her. She walked down the halls, peeking into the classrooms. They were not as crowded as the main room, but farther from the soup table. It was a first-come, first-served basis, and the people had decided if they would rather sleep well or go hungry. The security guard jogged up behind Maxine and Owen. Maxine turned to him. Did you have any luck?
No twins here. Sorry.
Maxine lowered her eyes to the floor. That meant her children were out on the streets. She turned to Owen, looking for his guidance.
It's getting dark. We can wait until morning and try again,
Owen said. Not with all the killings out there, Maxine replied.
They're 14. They're not helpless,
Owen argued.
One night. That's all I'm asking. Hold up, the guard said.
The couple turned to him, perturbed at his interruption. The guard asked,
What did you say about killings?
Owen rubbed his brow.
The downtown police station and water plant were both attacked. We don't know by who, but the shooters left no one alive."
Maxine nodded. "It looks like they're going after strategic places in the city." The guard mumbled a curse.
"Who else knows about this?" "Maybe just us. I can't say,"
Owen replied. "Is there a chase that works here?" Maxine asked, changing the subject.
"Yeah, a volunteer," the guard said quickly, and asked, "Do you think these shooters would come here?"
"I don't know," Maxine said curtly. "Show us where Chase is." Distracted, the guard said,
"Follow me."
They quickened their steps as they followed him into one of the classrooms.
"There,"
the guard said, pointing at someone hunched over a desk. Owen took a few steps forward when the man turned back. He wore an orange polo and had blonde hair and a beard. He was not Chase Barksdale. "That's the Chase you're talking about?" Maxine asked. The guard nodded. Owen sighed and put an arm around Maxine.
"Let's get something to eat, and then we can think of our next step."
Maxine, too tired to argue, let him guide her to the soup table. The 2 large pots were heated by gas burners. The server working there was a cute student with a wide grin. "Hi, what can I get you?" Her sunny personality was sickening. Owen looked over the options. There was beef stew and chicken noodle.
"The stew for me, chicken noodle for her."
"Coming right up," the student said. She seemed to be the only one on staff with energy. Maxine stared off at nothing. Owen leaned into her.
"Chase will keep them safe."
"He was supposed to be here," Maxine said. "It should be him serving us." The server overheard them and said, "Are you talking about Chase Barksdale?" Maxine and Owen both looked up at her, hungry for answers. "He called off this morning," the server said. "You know him?" Maxine asked. "We go to class together. He is a really great guy."
"Do you know why he didn't show up?"
Owen asked. "He had to take care of some family stuff. That's what he told me anyway." The server handed them the paper bowls. "Be careful, they're hot." Soup in hand, Owen and Maxine stepped away from the table. "I should have never come here," Maxine said.
"We made a choice,"
Owen said.
"Hey!"
a balding man shouted. He stood next to a window.
"There are working trucks out there!"
The crowd chattered amongst themselves. A few got up and headed to the window. Taking their soup with them, Owen and Maxine joined the rubbernecking crowd.
"The Army Reserves are here! Thank God!"
a man said. More people followed. Headlight beams cut through the darkness and rain. There were 5 trucks out there. Their black paint blended into the night. They had guards on the front. Owen took a sip of his soup. Maxine waited and watched. Something about this didn't sit right with her. People put up their hats and hoods before heading out. The security guard commanded the people,
All right. Everyone calm down."
A few of the volunteers headed out as well. They approached the trucks, waving them down in the rain. "I thought none of the cars worked," a little boy asked his father. He had a green and white striped shirt, big green eyes, and a little button nose. His father was a tall man with lanky limbs, wearing shorts, sandals, and a t-shirt. He fixed his rimless glasses.
"That's an '84 Chevy.
Unlike modern cars, it doesn't have many electronic components that could be hurt by the blast. Frankly, I'm surprised to see it running. You'd think the military would bring in Humvees." The people outside called out to the trucks. The only response they got was the bright lights turning on. Maxine's heart raced. "We need to leave." Owen, getting the same feeling, took a step back from the glass. The truck doors opened. A few people stepped out. They were clad in black, wearing rainproof cowls and black masks. The weight of their fully automatic rifles sunk their shoulder. Before anyone could react, they raised their weapons. The people inside gasped. Maxine took Owen's arm. She squeezed it hard. "We need to run!" Face losing all its color, Owen backed away from the window. Like a passerby watching a car accident, it was impossible to turn away. Bam, bam, bam. The people outside dropped one by one, expertly taken down with a series of quick shots. People screamed in fear. Wasting no time, the gunman rushed to the door. "Seal it!" the security guard shouted. Bullets blew through the metal doors, dropping the guard and a few others. Screaming, people ran to the hallways. They tripped over each other. Maxine and Owen were already ahead of the crowd. Following the exit signs, they ran parallel to the father and his child. Their pulses pounded. A terrific sound of noise poured out behind them. Bullets and cursing. Maxine and Owen navigated the maze of halls and saw the exit door. The little boy beside them tripped over himself and slammed his chin on the ground. "Jackson!" the father shouted as the crowd dashed by, pushing the father too. Maxine, eyes watering, turned and ran for the boy. "What are you doing?" Owen called out. Not hesitating, Maxine ran against the tide of people. She made it halfway through before a heavy-set man slammed into her. Maxine was knocked to her back, the heavy-set man crushing her. She gasped, struggling to breathe under his rotund body. The man pushed off her and kept running. Through the sea of people's feet, Maxine saw the boy like she was looking through a slideshow. Every time someone ran by, the boy would move farther away. Maxine tried to stand and was quickly knocked over. She scurried to the closest wall. It was opposite of the one where the boy was. He made brief eye contact before getting up and slipping into a room. The crowd of people bottlenecked at the door, squeezing through 2 at a time. As the crowd thinned out, Maxine took her chances and ran for the classroom. The moment she reached the door, she saw one of the gunmen rounding the hallway. She got into the classroom, closed the door quietly, and heard shooting. Her body trembled. More screams sounded outside the door. Maxine covered her mouth while tears trickled down her face. The room was pitch black. Rain pelted the windows. Various tables were set up across the room, with all the chairs facing the front. Maxine moved away from the door and hid behind the lecturer's desk. As she suspected, the little boy was there too. He opened his mouth to say something, but Maxine quickly covered it. She put her finger over her lips. Hunkered beneath the desk, they listened. Through the walls, they heard gunshots. Outside, it was worse. Maxine held the boy close to her. His body heat warmed her torso. She squeezed him tightly, not wanting either of them to move. After a few moments, the gunfire died away, and everything was deadly silent. Maxine's teeth chattered. She felt like a bomb about to explode. She glanced at the windows and wondered if they were possible to open. The boy breathed loudly. "Where's my dad?" "Shh." Maxine hushed him. She let go of him and glanced around the side of the desk, looking at the door. A little bit of the candlelight from the hall leaked through the crack. Something passed in front of the door. The doorknob twisted. She pulled her head back behind cover and held the boy, covering his mouth with her hand. The door opened with a long creak. Heavy, wet footsteps entered the classroom. The door fell shut. Maxine's breathing felt like it was too loud. She shut her mouth and tried to breathe through her nose. It did nothing to combat her fear. The footsteps continued through the room. Maxine tensed up. She glanced around for anything she could use as a weapon. Nothing. The footsteps got closer. Maxine screamed internally. Her eyes kept pouring tears as thoughts of her own children came to mind. She glanced to her right and looked down the barrel of a gun. Rain trickled down the nylon cowl of the gunman's hood. He wore black military garb and a thin ski mask with 2 eye holes. There was a scope on his assault rifle, along with a tactical grip and stock. This wasn't some backyard Hicks invention. This weapon was military grade. Maxine squeezed the boy tight. She kept his mouth covered. The boy's doe eyes looked into the man's eyes. Maxine opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. The gunman kept his finger over the trigger. The door opened. The gunman turned that way. A man from the hall yelled something in Chinese. It sounded like a command. The gunman near Maxine yelled back. The one in the hallway said something in an angry tone and closed the door. The gunman gave Maxine and the boy a long look. In broken English, he said, "You. Go." Terror froze Maxine. "Go," the gunman repeated himself. Trembling, Maxine rose to her feet. Keeping one hand on the boy's shoulder, she jogged to the door. She looked back. The gunman followed behind them, keeping the gun aimed at her back. "Open." Maxine turned the handle and stepped out into the hall, expecting to get shot. Bodies littered the floor. Blood pooled around their shoes. "Close your eyes," she whispered to the boy. There was no one else in the hallway but herself, the boy, and the gunman behind her. He gestured to the exit door. "Run!" Maxine picked up the boy by the hips and dashed to the exit. She skipped over bodies and pressed against the door bar with her back. Her eyes locked on the Chinese insurgent holding a gun just as she passed into the torrents of rain. Chapter 7. Delivery. 7:14 p.m. Maxine held the boy close to her chest. His little beating heart raced against her own. The boy's pencil legs entangled around Maxine's waist. She held firmly to his back. The squall soaked through his clothes, making it feel like Maxine was holding wet rags. If not from an overdose of adrenaline and the primal thirst to survive, Maxine would have dropped the boy minutes ago. Instead, she rushed him around the side of the student welcoming building without taking into account his body weight. A black, pregnant cloud blasted the earth with water. The total absence of lighting clothed Maxine in shadow. Not having time to put up her hood, fat raindrops pelted her beautiful face. She squinted her eyes and spit out a mouthful of cold water. Her blonde hair was flat against her head. The howling wind battered her. Screams sounded in the darkness. Muzzle flashes blipped like camera strobes. Maxine looked around frantically. There was no sign of Owen or the boy's father. Not seeing any gunmen, Maxine dashed across the roundabout, running through bushes in the median and coming to a halt at the campus center of law. She gave the door a try. It was locked. Nearby, a woman slouched against the wall. The bullet hole in her thigh leaked streaks of crimson. Maxine went to ask her if she was okay, but she noticed the woman was already dead. Holding the boy tighter, she ran around the back of the building. She ended up in the parking lot. People shouted at one another as they ran away. "Owen!" Maxine cried. She didn't get a reply. She looped around the building and dashed back into the campus. Her body trembled. Her shoulders screamed in pain. She tried the door to another building. It was locked too. She hiked up the steps to the Department of Biology, seeing a few other people slamming rocks against the glass door. Tables with closed umbrellas stood in the courtyard. None of the 5 people that banged on the glass looked like Owen.
"Have you seen my father?"
the boy asked one of them. The crazy-eyed, middle-aged man turned at the boy. He yelled, "Run!" Maxine turned back, seeing a figure in black in the distance. Lightning flashed, reflecting on the assault rifle's scope. Maxine hunched her head and ran. Gunshots sounded. She kept her eyes straight, not looking to see who got shot and who didn't. Her legs kept propelling her to run farther away. Her feet slid on wet grass and a tree branch swatted her shoulder. She grimaced and kept going until she hiked up the covered stairs of a different building. The boy trembled. He smelled of urine. Maxine's arms were strained. She put him down. The boy hugged himself. The wind seemed to bend up the stairs and freeze their soaked bodies. Maxine unzipped her jacket and put it over the boy. It almost touched down to his knees. He looked at her with his big doe eyes.
"What are you going to wear?"
Maxine forced a smile. "You just zip that up." The boy did so. Taking his clammy hand, Maxine hiked the flight of stairs to the 2nd story. She stayed low behind the metal railing and eyed the campus. Another building prevented her from seeing the student center. She looked down upon a long field of green grass. Shadows shrouded the clusters of trees. Their bodies bent and their branches danced. Maxine's teeth chattered. She rubbed her upper arms to stay warm. Water continued running down her face. Her clothes were glued to her body. She was glad she still wore her swimsuit. She mustered some courage and yelled, "Owen! Owen!" A screaming gust of wind replied. Chill bumps rose across Maxine's body. She needed shelter and warmth. She needed her lover. She needed her children. She needed to survive. The water had flattened the boy's bangs against his forehead. Water and snot trickled from his nose. His hands hid inside of the jacket's long sleeves. He stood still, waiting for Maxine to do something. Her temples felt like they were pushing into the sides of her brain. "What is your dad's name?"
The
boy said, thinking. The color fell from Maxine's face. She couldn't take care of this child. Getting him to his father was the #1 priority. "Do you know what letter it starts with?" The boy shook his head. Maxine turned back to the storm. Her mouth formed a line on her face.
"Oh!"
The boy got an epiphany.
"Dan! His name is Dan!"
Maxine yelled the father's name. Apart from the trees, nothing moved in the field before her. She wondered if the wind had blocked her voice. She tried again, calling for Owen, too. She suffered through a couple disparaging minutes. "You wait here," she told the boy.
"But what about you?"
"Please stop worrying about me." The boy looked to his soaked shoes. Maxine crouched down in front of him. She turned his face up to hers. "Stay here. I'll be back soon."
"Will you bring my father with you?"
Desperation sang through the boy's voice. "That's the plan," Maxine replied. Leaving him with the rain jacket, she hurried down the stairs. She reached the wall of rain at the bottom step. Steeling her nerves, She ran out into it. She kept her head down. She dashed through muddy puddles, praying that the rain would die down. She cut across the grass field and back to the road outside the student center. Dim light shone behind the windows. Bodies scattered the pathways beyond the exit door. Without light, she stayed low in the rain and darted to cover behind a tree. She pressed her clammy hands against the coarse bark, trying to see if she could spot the boy's father among the dead. The rain obscured her view. She needed to get closer. There didn't appear to be any gunmen. Biting into her cheek, Maxine darted from cover. In a moment, she was beside the bodies again. They'd fallen in strange positions. Maxine rolled one over as quick as she could. The moment she knew it wasn't Owen and Dan, she let the body drop and tried again. She was glad she didn't find the bodies, but life would have been simpler if she had. She noticed something glowing behind her. She twisted back. A flare arched through the sky. It glowed like a red sun in the stormy night. Owen! Hope and energy injected into her heart. It must have gotten launched on campus. The exit door started to open. With little time to flee, Maxine flopped down among the dead and shut her eyes. The warmth from the bodies pressed against her. Her head rested on the belly of the male host that greeted them. Candlelight from the hallway spilled over Maxine's eyelids. The soldier exchanged commands in Chinese. Maxine trembled. She fought to hold completely still, but her body refused. She gnashed her teeth, keeping them from chattering. Boots splashed through puddles around her. She felt her head rise and fall slightly. The person she was lying on was still alive. One of the men stepped on him as he ran past. The male host gasped. Maxine held still. She heard the soldier's footsteps return. Though her eyes were closed, she could sense him looming over her. The slightest movement, and her life would be over. The soldier said something quietly. He squatted beside Maxine. Under Maxine's head, the man's stomach inflated and deflated faster and faster. Maxine fought the palpable urge to run. The soldier chuckled. Maxine heard a rattling gasp. It took all she had to keep still. The soldier whispered something, taking pleasure from the act of killing. The water around Maxine warmed up. The man's stomach stopped moving. The soldier stayed squatted down. The shower masked the involuntary tears rolling out of Maxine's eyes. The soldier stood. His footsteps quieted, and soon Maxine couldn't hear them at all. Maxine opened her eyes. The dead were her only company. She quickly sat up. The host she lay on top of had a yawning wound across his neck. Rain fell on his open eyes. Seconds from vomiting, she forced herself to her feet. She'd hoped that her body would acclimate to the horrible weather, but instead she felt worse than ever. She headed in the direction of the flare. It was hard to judge how far Owen was when he shot it. Maxine followed the road through campus, coming to the parking lot. The flare burned on the roof of a minivan. Its crimson glow illuminated brightly. Smoke billowed out from the stubby stick. Maxine hid behind a car, eyeing the silhouettes of 5 soldiers fanning out and flanking the flare. Like Maxine, they moved from car to car, using every bit of concealment to their advantage. Maxine lowered to her belly and scooted under a truck. Safe from the rain, she waited. Across the lot, she spotted a shape beneath another car. It appeared to be a person. Owen. The gunmen moved through the lot. Their movement was methodical and quiet. Their gun stocks held firmly to their inner shoulder. Their gloved hands tightened around the rifle's grip. Maxine carefully slipped from under the truck. Staying on her belly, she wormed her way to the next car. She repeated the process, staying out of the flare's light. Each time she made it to another vehicle, she waited. The gunmen occasionally checked under vehicles. Maxine stayed on her belly, her torso pressed against the unforgiving concrete. It was one of the few times she wished she wasn't well endowed. She army crawled to the next van. A gunman's boots passed in front of her. She covered her mouth. The instant the gunman was behind her, Maxine squeezed out and continued her journey. She'd made it 3/4 of the way across the lot. The shape she saw under the distant vehicle had vanished. Dread left Maxine breathless. In a panic, she looked around for any sign of the person. She spotted an arm waving at her from behind a tree at the back of a nearby building. Maxine still couldn't tell if it was Owen. Though full of doubt, she made her way out from under the car, stayed low, and used the car wheels as cover. She avoided the gunmen, keeping track of their movements and moving accordingly. When she arrived at the edge of the parking lot, she dropped to her belly and crawled her way to the tree. A hand reached out from behind the tree and took her own. The man pulled her to her feet. Though it was dark, Maxine knew it was Owen. Owen put her behind himself. She hugged his back as he silently watched the lot. The gunmen surveyed from end to end. 3 of them started back to the student center. The remaining 2 split up, one scouting the road, and the other heading Maxine's way. Owen faced Maxine. His hood guarded the top half of his face. He pulled the flare gun out of his jacket's front pocket and loaded the last flare. He sealed the gun. Maxine shook her head. "No," she whispered. Owen said, "Tell me when he's close." To keep hidden, Maxine squeezed against Owen. She was the eyes, he was the gun. The gunman neared the line of the trees. He constantly fanned his rifle. His steps were precise. His aim would be deadly. 15 feet, Maxine whispered. Owen readied the flare gun. 10. Maxine got ready to drop down. 5. As the gunman rounded the tree, Maxine whispered, "Now!" She dropped to her belly. Owen leaned around the side of the tree and blindly fired. The flare hit the soldier's face and bounced back. He flopped to his back, shooting a few rounds into the sky. Fire erupted on his face. The soldier across the street shouted. Maxine and Owen ran. Bullets zipped by them. The soldier ran to the aid of his buddy. Whether or not the soldier was dead or knocked out, Maxine didn't care. They didn't let up on their sprint until they were up the stairs where Maxine had left the boy. Breathless, they doubled over, resting their hands on their knees. Suddenly, Owen grabbed Maxine's waist, forced her to him, and kissed her passionately. Against her better judgment, Maxine kissed him back. Eyes held tightly shut, she desperately tried to get lost in the act. The horrors of the day flickered in her mind. She kissed him harder. His body and breath were her only warmth. In the midst of the gunfire, death, and dangerous choices, she felt more alive than she ever had. Owen suddenly broke away from her. His icy blue eyes looked into hers. The day had aged him. Wrinkles etched on his forehead. Water dripped from his finely trimmed beard. "I love you. I love you so much." Leaking water everywhere, Maxine took his face in the palms of her hands and kissed him again. Like a drowning ship captain reaching desperately for her life buoy, Maxine held on to the moment. Like all things, the kiss ended. Maxine slowly pulled her trembling body away from his and looked down at her feet. "We need to find our children."
"We will,"
Owen said firmly. His confidence fed Maxine. Owen looked down at her body.
"Where's your jacket?"
"He has it." Maxine gestured to the boy seated nearby. Owen was surprised.
"I didn't see you there."
Tears stained the boy's face.
"Where's my dad?"
Maxine felt the weight of her responsibility come back over her.
"I saw him,"
Owen said, grabbing Maxine's and the boy's attention.
"He snuck back inside the student center to look for you."
"Did you see him leave?" Maxine asked.
"I was too busy trying to find you to notice if he did or not."
"Great," Maxine mumbled sarcastically.
"You're not thinking about actually going in there."
"I'm not leaving this kid out here."
"Then we'll take him to another shelter,"
Owen replied.
"He lost his father,"
Maxine argued.
"We have our families to worry about."
Maxine looked to the kid, feeling guilty. "I didn't save him to leave him for the wolves." She took the boy's hand. "We're going back."
"Maxine, this is insane,"
Owen said. "Are you coming with me or not?" she asked as she put up the boy's hood. Owen flared up.
"I survived alone when I was his age."
"He's a child," Owen argued back.
"When I was 5 years old, I ran away from the orphanage and spent 3 years on my own. If I can do it, this kid can too."
"I'm sorry you had to go through that, but I'm not changing my mind." Owen looked down at the cute, innocent boy hidden in an oversized jacket. He set his jaw and conceded.
"Okay. But let me ask you one last thing. Is his life worth more than Ike's and Sarah's?"
The words were a knife in Maxine's chest. She didn't reply. Owen said,
"I think I know where they are, Maxine."
"Good," Maxine said. "You can tell me after we search the student center." Owen stewed. Maxine turned to the boy. "You need to do everything I say. You got that?" After formulating a loose plan, the three of them returned to the storm. Owen took point. He held his anger behind tight lips. They reached the side of the student center. Using the bushes as concealment, they peeked through the window. The building was 2 stories tall. A lot of ground wasn't being covered by the soldiers. Owen tried a side entrance. It was locked. They headed around the front of the building. Bodies littered the lawn and road. The soldiers' black trucks were parked where they had left them. Owen and Maxine tried the truck doors. They were locked. If Maxine had a knife, she'd slash their tires. They looked through the windows, seeing the bodies and blankets across the floor. There were no signs of the soldiers. Owen carefully pushed open the door. He quietly stepped inside, keeping a keen eye on his surroundings. He gestured for them to follow. The boy went in next. Maxine guarded the back. Cringing, she shut the door. It didn't make any noise. She kept a hand over the boy's eyes as they circled the large room and turned down the hall. Soup and blood pooled on the floor. Thank God, Maxine didn't see any of the other children. Some of the room had inner glass windows. They got on their knees and crawled under them. One had its door propped open. People spoke Chinese inside. Keeping in the formation that they had when they entered, Owen peeked in first. He gestured for Maxine to find another way around. She did. "What was in there?" she asked quietly as they gained some distance.
4 of them. They were looking over a map of the city.
The boy sneezed. Maxine's heart rate spiked. The voices in the room quieted down. Keeping a hand on the boy, they turned down another hall and followed the maze-like corridor. The voices drew nearer. Maxine and her party kept a brisk pace. They opened up every office and quietly called for Dan. After a few seconds without reply, they moved on. They didn't know how much time they had left before they were caught. They heard the soldiers moving behind them. Maxine, Owen, and the boy hid behind a vending machine. The soldiers passed down the T-section of the hallway. When they were out of sight, Maxine, Owen, and the boy moved on. They rounded a corner. A hand wrapped around Maxine's mouth, preventing her from screaming. She quickly stomped on the man's toe. It took 3 hard stomps before he grunted. The others twisted back, their eyes widened. The boy pulled back his hood.
"Dad?"
"Jackson?"
the man holding Maxine said. The man released Maxine's mouth. She created distance between them. Blood stained the man's polo. He wore khaki pants and had grain-brown hair. Joy brought color to his face as he picked up his son. The boy hugged him tightly, resting his head on his shoulder. Maxine interrupted. "I hate to ruin the sentimental moment, but we need to go." Owen nodded in agreement. Dan replied.
"There's a way out upstairs." "Lead the way,"
Owen said. Dan kept his boy close and started back the way they came. Owen followed, and Maxine stayed in the back. Maxine noticed smudged blood following in Dan's wake. He wasn't leaving complete footprints, but there was a trail. She put her hand on his shoulder. Dan held his finger over her lips and made hand gestures to tell her to keep going. Maxine shook her head and whispered, "Lose the shoes." But Maxine cut him off with a look. The man noticed his tracks. He put his son down and started untying his shoes. Maxine and Owen looked out. Owen whispered,
"Maxine."
The soldiers' shadows stretched across the corner of the hall. They'd be upon them in seconds. Maxine told him, "Run, now!" One shoe still on, Dan spotted the shadows. He swept up his boy. They jogged down the corridor, hoping it would lead them to an exit. The soldiers started shouting. They must have found the shoe. Maxine and the rest ran. There was an exit at the end of the hall. They ran quickly. The shadows grew up the walls behind them. Owen pushed through the door first, holding it for the father and his son. The sound of rain echoed down the corridor. Maxine rushed through the threshold and shut the door. Bullets blasted through it. Owen yelped. Maxine put an arm around them, and they darted away from the building, running alongside an overflowing pond. They dashed across the football field. They stopped at the wellness center and took a breather under the overhang. Dan put his son down. They kept an eye out for the soldiers. They didn't pursue.
"Thank you,"
Dan said, shaking Maxine's hand. "Look after him," she said to the boy.
"I will,"
the boy replied. Dan shook Owen's hand.
"I pray you'll find safety." "You too,"
Owen said. "We're more concerned with our children," Maxine replied. Dan nodded soberly.
"Perhaps some nice people like you will help them like you helped us."
Maxine and Owen didn't reply. Dan thanked them again.
"I wish there was some way to repay you."
"Find shelter," Maxine said. "Keep that boy safe." Not wanting to stick around, Maxine and Owen scurried off into the dark. They crossed the street and entered a neighborhood. Owen turned to the first house he saw without a car in the driveway, picked up a brick, and slammed it against the window. The first hit splintered the glass. The second shattered it. Owen helped Maxine through first before following after. "Hello?" Maxine called out. Hearing no reply, they quickly checked the rooms to make sure no one was home. Securing the house, they headed to the bedroom. They searched the dresser and closet, looking for dry clothes. Maxine and Owen stripped off everything and dried off with towels. Maxine put on new underwear and a sports bra that didn't quite fit. She finally put on sweatpants and an extra layer of socks. For her top, she slipped on a long-sleeve shirt, hoodie, and a men's rain jacket. Owen kept his jacket, but traded out every article of his fine clothing. He hated downgrading. Wearing long pants and a long-sleeve shirt, he opened the fridge and ate some lunch meat. Maxine joined him, filling up with leftovers. Owen unzipped his waterproof backpack and pulled out slightly damp bottles of water. Maxine drank one down. They found a bottle of whiskey on top of the fridge. Maxine broke the seal and took a shot. It loosened her nerves. Owen took the bottle from her and did the same. After consuming a packet of headache powder, Maxine sank down on the couch. The broken window invited the chilling breeze and inescapable smell of rain. Owen sat next to her. They'd left the kitchen and bedroom a mess. Without their bikes, they'd have to walk home in the rain. It would be another hellish trek. "So, where are our kids?" Maxine asked, her face shadowed by the darkness. Owen fixed his gaze at on TV. "You didn't lie, did you?" Maxine asked.
"I wish I had,"
he replied. Maxine gave him a strange look. With guilt in his bloodshot eyes, he turned to Maxine.
"I made a mistake."